All right, welcome in everyone for another edition of Miami Hurricanes Live. We come your way each and every week to talk Miami football, and the 2019 season, of course, is in the books. And the only way that this show works is to bring on Cam Underwood from State of the U. So we appreciate his time. Cam, how you doing today?
I'm all right. Just hanging out, getting ready to run around a little bit later. Got some things to do, but before that, talking a little football. So, yeah.
So we dive straight into the offseason, a long offseason. I mention it from time to time. This is the longest offseason in sports, the college football offseason, but much to get accomplished on the Miami front. So let's start with the breaking news. Miami fans have long anticipated the arrival and the debut on the field of Lorenzo Lingard, and maybe that won't even occur. So give us the latest on that.
Lorenzo Lingard just entered the transfer portal about an hour ago. So he did play as a true freshman on special teams, and he had that one long carry against Savannah State, I want to say, in one of the early games, the second game of the year last year. Got injured in practice. Basically, a scout team player was trying to make a name for himself, dove through Lorenzo Lingard's knee and shredded it. That ended his season. But he'd already played in enough games where he could not redshirt. Came back this year, wasn't 100%. Maybe it was more mental with his injury coming back from that. And if you've ever had an injury, you understand how that can be. So he asked to redshirt this year. But towards the end of the year, you still have games to play now where you can redshirt but still participate. After DJ Dallas got hurt and things like that, you're looking and saying, okay, maybe he's going to get some snaps. That did not occur. He got one snap at Duke as a basically fullback in a two-back, no tight end set formation for that one play. Didn't play against FIU, did not play against in the bowl game, the loss to Louisiana Tech that we're going to talk about in a little bit. So, yeah, he's one of the few five-star players. He might have been the last five-star player on the roster as a recruit. And now he's pretty much booking a ticket out of town. So, it is unfortunate because Lingard is so supremely talented. He's a three-time state champion hurdler in high school, has the kind of breakaway speed that you look for in a running back. I mean, he's chiseled, he's 6'1", 205 pounds, just with freaky athleticism. But, obviously his performance did not meet his athleticism, and he didn't really even earn or get, however you want to classify it, a chance to show that basically here. I mean, he was working his way into a good role as a freshman, and then that injury from that practice engagement. So yeah, that's what happened with him, and it looks like he's going to be on his way out of town. And as I scan the roster, I think that he was the last five. Well, okay, depending on how, I think Rivals had Mark Pope as a 5-star also. Well, no, and then you get a transfer in Jalen Phillips, who was the number one player in America 3 years ago. So you still have two, well, one everybody's 5-star, one solo rankings 5-star, as in not across the board, but by one of the site's proprietary rankings. But regardless, one of the more talented players on the roster was Lorenzo Lingard, and it looks like he's going to be leaving to go elsewhere. Miami is still going to be stacked at running back, though. Cameron Harris can be your starter. Robert Burns can be a rotation guy. I fully expect and hope that Donald Chaney Jr. and or Jalen Knighton supplant Robert Burns in the backup roles to Cameron Harris, or even, just jump to the front of the line. But, there's still a bunch of talent in the running back room, but losing a Lorenzo Lingard, a player of that caliber, is not something that, should be comforting or a joyous occasion. But again, we wish him all the best moving forward.
So this might be speculation on your part, so you won't dive into that, but do you know anything concrete beyond just a depth chart consideration on his part?
Not really. I mean, there's all kinds of hearsay. I mean, you see his uncle or family member on Twitter. He comes out, every now and then, and he'll say things. He's the one who tweeted Lorenzo. He tweeted a joke early in the season that Lingard was going to transfer. But this is his family member, so you take that into high esteem. And then he deleted it, and then he communicated with some people hey, don't, that was a joke. He was being sarcastic at the time. It was because it was around the opener or something. So I mean, it was that was kind of crazy. But yeah, he's been, his silence, this family member speaks volumes. You know what I mean? And it just seems, that, it would stand to reason that Lingard believes that he did not get a fair shake and wants to just get a new start elsewhere. And many guys have done that. So, like I said, he's a very talented player. Wanted him at the U, wanted to see him get a chance. But if that's not going to happen, then I wish him all the best moving forward.
We talk Miami football each and every week. The way we do it best is bring on Cam Underwood from State of the U. So definitely show your appreciation for him. We've got the super chat available. We also have, obviously, like the videos. That puts us in a better place on YouTube. And I will be monitoring the live chat, of course, and posting your comments on the screen and passing those along to Cam to answer those questions. I also have our latest edition of our Miami football talk following the Louisiana Tech game to pass on any questions or comments that seem relevant or interesting or insightful to Cam from that. So we've got plenty of resources to pass on any kind of comments or questions to Cam. Of course, in addition to Lingard, now we've got, I would think that the most important aspect of this football team right now is finding a new offensive coordinator.
Absolutely.
He went into the game basically knowing that he was coaching his last game, and it was certainly not a stellar effort on his part in particular.
Well, if you believe, it depends on who you believe. Obviously, Tim Reynolds from the Associated Press is a journalist beyond reproach. If he's going to put out a report like that, he's not going to just do it by happenstance. He's not a social media gangster. He's not out there just looking for clout. He's doing his job. Manny Diaz, however, on a radio interview today said that the decision to fire Dan Enos was not made before the game, but after the game. And he doesn't know how that report came out. I don't know who you want to believe. I'm not going to say that Tim Reynolds made anything up. I believe that he actually had it right. I believe that Manny Diaz just went out there to try to talk a good game and save face today. But yeah, again, it was one of those things. There's too much smoke for there not to be fire. If you have a professional journalist who is going to have at least 3, unlinked sources confirm something to the point where they're going to report it, it came from somewhere, buddy. You know what I mean? And I get Manny, might want to say, oh, I didn't know that I told this one person who then was going to whatever. But to sit here and say, ask directly, after the game about it. He said, oh, there'll be a time and a place that we talk about Dan Enos. And then less than 12 hours later, he's fired. But you didn't make that decision until after we got shut out against Louisiana Tech, after what you'd seen in these last, whole season and everything. Like, I was born at night, but not last night. You know what I mean? Like, you didn't lose that game getting shut out with only, because I still have the stats open because you know how I like to do it. 227 yards of total offense. You didn't see that. Get on the plane, fly back and say, hey, you know what? I'm thinking now all of a sudden, no, sorry, miss me with that. So in any event, the offense looked putrid. Again, Dan Enos has been let go, shown the door, and just, we've parted ways, which I think was the right move. I've been saying for years, Miami needs to go pace and space. I don't care there's so many different versions of it. People hear spread and they think air raid Washington State, Texas Tech. Even if you look at Texas Tech, though, Texas Tech runs for lots of yards because the Big 12 runs for yards. There's so many versions of spread that you can run. Look at LSU. You know what I mean? And no, we're not necessarily going to have that offense. I would love that offense. But we need to put our guys in space. We need to stop running stuff to the short side of the field. We need to stop rolling our right-handed quarterbacks to the left. And again, I get that can be a tendency breaker, but that cannot be the foundation of the offense. There's so few guys who can do that, who can run to their opposite hand, flip their, opposite side, flip their hips, get their, arm through and make a good, accurate, on-time pass. Especially when you're running flood and everything, because you're not going to only throw a 5-yard pass. You're going to throw a 10-yard out, a 12-yard out. That's a long throw. If you're looking at the diagonal of the hypotenuse, because you go up and over, that's what that is. That's a long throw going to the wrong side. Why is that the foundation of our offense? Why are we doing these long developing play action passes that take forever when you don't have the offensive line for it? And the run game disappeared this year. The run game was like 60% worse in terms of yardage and production this year than last. What are you talking about? It was obvious that Dan Enos needed to go. And Manny Diaz made that move, which is different than Mark Richt, who obviously needed a new offensive coordinator, refused to do it for the reasons that I previously detailed. Go look up those videos. Same like Al Golden refused to get rid of his friend Mark D'Onofrio. I don't know what their bond was where he said, look, I'm willing to go down with the ship and get fired for you. But at least Manny Diaz is taking that one step. But again, 2 weeks ago, I wrote the Embattled Coaches Playbook. And this is one of those early plays where you say, look, you've already used up the first step. That video from Traffic talking about the 2 letters. I embedded that, the first one you blame the old guy, the second time write 2 letters because there's going to be a new guy taking your job. You've already blamed the old guy. You've already said, okay, the culture stuff, what happened here before, I'm getting rid of all that. So you're explicitly placing it on Mark Richt and what happened previously. You've already missed once. You're probably not going to get a chance to miss twice. So whoever you bring in, you better hit it. And today on the radio, Manny Diaz want to talk about, we're going to do things cutting edge and spread, pace and space, and da-da-da-da. You can say everything that you want to say. Show me. I'm not buying what you're saying. I'm not buying what you're selling anymore. Get somebody in here. Let's see the update. And that needs to happen. And if the update and performance doesn't happen with the offense, then Manny Diaz is going to be out of here after the end of the next year, period.
So what I don't understand about all that is everything you ran down about what has become bullet points to Dan Enos's offense are tenets that you, as a knowledgeable football observer, myself, can quickly identify that don't make sense to do when you have speed advantage, when you have quarterbacks who are inexperienced and if not proven to be able to do certain things, then you don't do them. All the things that you just ran down. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be a scout. You don't have to be a coach. All those things to understand that those aren't going to work, or you need to build a foundation until you have players that approve, especially at the quarterback position, that they can take that extra step and do some things to break tendencies. That's what I don't understand. If Dan Enos was here talking football with us, he knows so much more about offensive football than either one of us. How do you go and then continue to...
Right. Exactly. Like, I mean, it's insanity. It's trying to do the same thing, expect the outcome to change. Like, I get that you have to have a foundation. You have to have a system. You have to have a paradigm that you're going to work with. But if the result is not proper, that means the process is flawed, period. That's just what it is. In your industry, my industry, well, industries, because, I changed my job from teaching to what I'm doing now. I thought I was going to tell you, but anybody listening, there's a process. But if it's not reaping the benefit or the outcome that you desire, then the process has to change. And this transition has to be part and parcel of that. Dan Enos obviously was one that was not going. He was going to run his system, what he wanted to run, what had worked, and it had worked previously. I expected one of those, seasons with statistics like his first or second season at Arkansas, which were pretty good. That was not what we got. We got from even a bad offense last year in 2018. Miami regressed in 2019, and yeah, and he stuck to his guns and wanted to run what he was going to run, and that's perfectly fine. We'll go run it somewhere else. But yeah, Miami needs to find a person. I saw somebody ask who I think that is going to be the next offensive coordinator. I honestly don't know. I haven't even looked into. I know, I would like Sean Gleason from Oklahoma State because I thought that he would have been a good fit coming in last year from Princeton. Instead of trying to go chase somebody who's hot. Get the young rising guy who's demonstrated it. No, it wasn't at Alabama, Miami, Michigan, Ohio State, Texas. It wasn't at that kind of a place, but it was at a place at Princeton with a talent deficit, where he's doing more with less. You can put that here, ascribe that scheme to the talent that Miami has on the roster. Now you can do more with more, as opposed to Miami, who's done less with more than any team in the country over the last 15 years. Could it be a Rhett Lashley? I would like that. Could it be a Kevin Johns from Memphis? I would enjoy that. Could it be David Yost? Could it be, I mean, look, Willie Fritz probably wants to stay a head coach, but I would take Willie Fritz. You know, I mean, there are options out there. There are names out there. Manny Diaz said that he's talked to about 7 or 8 guys from the college and NFL levels. So maybe an assistant a la Joe Brady when he was an assistant with the Saints, and now he's at LSU, obviously lighting the world on fire, the Broyles Award winner for National Assistant Coach of the Year. That's where I would like to go. I mean, if you can get a great offensive mind who has demonstrated it at this level already, awesome. Major Applewhite is a name that was thrown out there previously before Dan Enos was hired. Somebody of that ilk who you can look at and say, as an offensive coordinator, they did this. As a head coach, yeah, Major Applewhite don't got the juice. But as an offensive coordinator, he does. That would be great. Or you could be ahead of the curve, get a young guy, hungry, knows his stuff, going to come in and and do what Miami used to do and be on the cutting edge of hiring these guys. Look at, I mean, all the guys who used to coach at Miami, who are now head coaches, coordinators. Coach Orgeron, he was a defensive line coach down here with Warren Sapp. Look at Randy Shannon, who was here. Look at Greg Schiano, who was here. Look at both of the Stoops brothers, who were here as assistants. Look at Chuck Pagano, who coached in the NFL, who was here at the time. Look at Randy Chudzinski, Rob Chudzinski, who was here. Look at all these guys who used to be assistants who then stepped up. Miami has not had anything like that. So even if you are not familiar with the name right now, there should be, and there are guys who are going to be rising stars in this industry. Miami could find one of those. I don't know if Manny Diaz has the discerning eye for coaching talent to find them, and I don't know which way he wants to go. But it would be interesting to see. But either way, or any way that things go, you got to go more of a spread offense, and you have to update the performance and the production on offense, regardless of who's calling plays.
When I think of this style of offense, I go back, let's say 20 to 25 years. That's about where I think it originated at some point, having to do with the concept of the tempo, the spacing of the players, the spread formation. So there's a few basic concepts, and then there are all sorts of iterations of it. So 20 or 25 years ago, when you're talking Mouse Davis and people like that, there were a select few who knew how to run it, and it was in little pockets in the nation, and usually in situations like you just pointed out, where programs were understaffed from a talent perspective and were looking to gain advantages for guys that could just pitch and catch, weren't necessarily the fastest or the quickest or the 5-star guys, but they could pitch and catch, and they were really good at that. But
well, that was because they couldn't go 3 yards in a cloud of dust. They didn't have the size. You know, when everybody was doing that, when Ohio State and Michigan were, just everybody's in the box, everybody's tight in there, and we're going to out physical you because we're bigger and stronger than you. Those teams who didn't have that kind of size and strength said, look, we got to do something else because we're David always going against Goliath. We're not going to do that. We can do that, but lose. But we had to try to find an inefficiency to figure out a way to take advantage of something that we have. And the thing that we have is 100 yards by 53 1/3 of space. So they can go vertical, we can go horizontal, we can find all that, but we don't have to live in this box.
And in addition to that, they didn't necessarily have the athletes to. So passing games years and years ago were more about extending the field. There was not dumping off. There weren't bubble screens. It was about getting your best players out there, and you're throwing long outs and seam routes and crossing patterns from 18 yards. And if you watch football in the 70s and 80s, the passing game was downfield. Then, of course, the West Coast offense changed that to a certain extent, and all this stuff morphs together, different people taking different concepts. But it had to do also with just not having the superior arm talent and speed downfield, and saying, we've got some quick guys, and we found this 2-star quarterback who's really good at just pitch and catch and being accurate inside like 8 yards. So my point was going to be, where these guys were exclusive 20 years ago, they're not. This is being run 75 to 80% of the country. So you should be able to find somebody who's really good at running it, because again, these coaches share from each other. They're going to coaching clinics and camps and visiting each other's teams constantly. So the sharing of the information, this is not nearly as exclusive as it was even 5 years ago, that you would think you'd be able to find a bright mind that could run this offense.
One would think, and it is not exclusive, except for in Coral Gables for the Miami Hurricanes. I love that ringtone. I always dance.
That's actually somebody that wants to call the show. That's the generic number. So somebody thinks that they can wait. We're not taking calls right now. Thank you so much. Cam's got a lot to talk about. We've got a number of comments on the live chat. Unfortunately, that number's out there. So that number goes off like in the middle of the day.
Oh, okay.
People just calling.
That's fine. This question on the screen is hilarious from SEC Dog. How did y'all win 6 games is the real question. I mean, because we're a talented team, you know, and you put together a couple of games here and there, and, you know, you go, I mean, basically, you know, you win one and you lose one. Like Bethune, that was always going to be a blowout. Central Michigan, that should have always been a win, but that 17-12 win was emblematic of this season. You know, you lose to Virginia Tech by turning the ball over 4 times in the first 13 snaps and spotting them a 4-touchdown lead. You know, you cowboy up on a Friday night when somebody was your Duncan high energy fan of the week and beat a ranked Virginia team. You lose to a terrible Georgia Tech team in overtime the next week. You go up to Pittsburgh, cowboy up, come back from down late to win that game. You beat Florida State because they're a dumpster fire, but I guess we're with them burning trash. Louisville, we just hit every throw down the field, so you blow them out because, you know, and I was tweeting back with one of their bloggers. He was like, how did, you know, that was the low mark of Louisville season. How did we lose? And I'm like, because y'all didn't cover any crossing routes or post routes. So we just bombed y'all all day. You lose to FIU, which is terrible. You lose to Duke, which is terrible. You lose to the bowl game and get shut out, which is terrible. And boom, that's how you go 6-7. So, I mean, it stands to reason that a couple of games you let the talent on the roster showed through and you ended up winning. But, I mean, it could have easily been a 3-win season as it could have been 10. So 6-7 is goodish. I don't even know. I mean, considering where things could have gone, it was better than that. But I mean, it's not crazy to say that, okay, this team that intermittently applied themselves in terms of winning and losing.
I was most impressed by the Louisville game because, yeah, they went 7-5, and certainly that program's not arrived, but Scott Satterfield has brought it leaps and bounds in just a year. And they were at times looking like the second or third best team in the conference. And you put up 52 and all sorts of yardage. And that was just an aberration compared to the other wins. So the best win on the board is Virginia. But the offense struggled. That was a defensive game in which the defense basically just laid it down and said, you know, we're winning this game. We're taking it upon ourselves. And the defense, which has been a top 15 to 25 defense in the nation, won the game. But that Louisville game was, okay, the defense came to play, but they come to play almost every week. Wow, where did this offense come from? And we know Louisville's defense isn't good, but they're not giving up 52 points every week. So
again, we just hit shots. You know, like every open throw we hit that game. You know, you had a play action, fake bubble wheel route to the tight end. You know, sometimes you get a blitz there. Sometimes you don't get that. You hit that. You get, you know, throws over the top, seam routes, post routes. I mean, every single shot that we could take, we made that game. You know, and I'm talking deep shots. I mean, look, Jaren threw for 6 touchdowns. You know what I mean? Like the proof's in the pudding right there. But that was literally, it was a perfect downfield throwing performance. And it was to the point where, just like we talked about in 2017, when North Carolina started the trend, but Pittsburgh, their performance exemplified it of, look, we're going to take away everything short. We're going to make you beat us over the top because I don't think your quarterback can do that. Louisville did the same thing, except for Jaren Williams was like on fire, like playing NBA Jam, like a literal like supernova coming out of his hand, and he hit every throw. That's how we hit for 52. I mean, it was that same thing where you had that razor's edge margin for error, but he just hit everything.
Since you bring up Jaren Williams, this was my analysis after the game. And when I bring the analysis, it's much different than Cam. Cam knows the roster. He knows the personnel. He knows Miami football inside and out. I watch 6 or 8 games a year. I'm trying to watch everyone's. And I'm not reading about Miami football. I take everything in from Cam, and then I watch the game on Saturday. And if I can't watch the game live, I'm watching the condensed version, every play, blah, 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 blah. So this is what I see when I watch that game. And I've seen it before in evaluating the 2 quarterbacks. I'm throwing out Tate Martell. He played 1 series. He didn't look good. I don't think he's in the other, unless, again, it's a very small sample size, but I just don't think he's in the league of the other 2 guys. But when I watch Perry versus Williams, this is what I see. I see a very tentative quarterback when I watch Jaron Williams. I see a guy who's indecisive, who aims the football at times, doesn't cut it loose. I see a guy who doesn't exude a lot of confidence. And I'm very conservative in trying to read body language and talk about it. I don't try to get inside guys' ears, between their ears, and try to make some kind of conjecture toward that. I typically don't do that. I'm not big on the sideline reporter that says this sideline looks like it's confident and this one doesn't. I don't try to read into that. But so I hesitate there. But that's what I see versus N'Kosi Perry. Even when he's making a bad decision, which is on occasion, he seems very confident in what he wants to do. He seems like he goes boom, 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 making a decision, and he throws that ball with conviction. And I see this over and over and over again, and most recently in this bowl game.
Yeah, I cannot necessarily fault you on that observation. I thought that Jaron would be more further along in his development, I will say, because when he redshirted last year as a true freshman, I said from the spring game, it just looked like the game's a step too fast. That linebacker's in that window for a throw that you're not there in high school. And okay, that kind of a thing. Jaron does hold the ball a lot. I think he's more of a cerebral guy, it seems to me, of, okay, well, I'm looking. For better or worse, like you said, N'Kosi will go confidently in the direction of his dreams. Like, hey, I'm gonna cut that ball loose. I'm gonna throw it here. I saw this. Boom. That resulted in that interception that he threw, but also in a couple of good throws. So, I mean, there is performance that needs to be more consistent on the good side. But yeah, he is more, okay, this is it. Boom, done. I'm gonna cut it loose. And sometimes I would like to see more of that in Jaron, of just like, I get it. Maybe not predetermining so much, but just like, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. And I mean, maybe it's a little bit of Jay Cutlerism where it's the look on his face that kind of gives you this emotion, or that we're prescribing or ascribing to him that's not necessarily true. Because Jaron Williams still dropped dimes too. I mean, hey, Louisville, boom, other games, even in the Florida game, drop some dimes. You know what I mean? So, I mean, he's out there playing well, but they just do different things well. They have just different skill sets. N'Kosi, he has a stronger arm, going to push it down the field a little bit more. I would have liked to see N'Kosi Perry in an offense that had some designed quarterback runs, where Dan Enos said, "Oh yeah, we ran quarterback run this year." No, you didn't. 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 No, he didn't. You called, and people misconstrued what I said. They called a quarterback draw for Jaron in the bowl game. And I tweeted all caps. I said, "Whoa, quarterback run." People were like, "Oh, you're a hater." I was like, "No, you missed. No. That's Dan Enos doing what he said that he had been doing all year that he had not actually done." And I don't think it was necessarily the appropriate usage because, can Jaron run some when he needs to? Yes. Is he a runner? No. But who is, or a better runner, in my estimation? N'Kosi. He has shake, he has speed. I mean, these things I would love to have seen, again, spread the field out and run a zone read with a quarterback run actual option, as opposed to what we've been doing since, Brad Kaya's freshman year, which is basically inside zone that we call an RPO or whatever. But I mean, there's no QB run tag to it. It's okay, inside zone or the inside slant from the 2 receiver on whichever side. That's pretty much it.
There's an interesting debate going back and forth between Notre Dame and Miami fans on who would make the college football playoffs first, which is which there's no comparison between the two programs right this second, but
Right.
certainly Notre Dame could continue to miss the college football playoffs, although they just made it last year. And they just went 11-2. So they're in better shape to get it done, but certainly Miami could, and Notre Dame could not make the college football play. I just find it.
Yeah, but I mean, as we sit here now, it would be asinine to say an answer other than Notre Dame. And I hate that school. I hate that institution. I hate that football program. And I will never, ever let you forget that Brian Kelly sent Declan Sullivan to his certain death in the name of practice video. I don't know why people have forgotten about that, but I have not. All of that being said, you cannot look at the state of these two programs and honestly think that Miami is closer to the college football playoff than Notre Dame. That's no, sorry.
All right. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We talk Miami with Cam Underwood from State of the U. That's on SB Nation, stateoftheu.com. Most of you should be familiar with that, I'm sure, as they dive into basketball. But of course, there's much to talk about concerning football with an offensive coordinator position up, the transfer portal constantly circulating. And of course, recruiting wraps up the first Wednesday of February. So to dip into this bowl game just a little bit, it seems like it was ancient history and is at this point and really doesn't matter. But I heard one statistic that during the, I don't know if this has been verified, since the BCS era, now playoff era since 1998, this is the first time a group of five has shut out a Power Five in a bowl game.
That is true and correct. This is also the first time in the history of the Independence Bowl that,
Yes.
Yeah, the first time in an Independence Bowl that a team got shut out.
Which these bowl games have been around a long time. This one's not an ancient one, but like 45 years, you would think when they were playing like 1970s football that there might have been a shutout.
Not until the 2019 Miami Hurricanes offense came along. I mean, it's just, it was atrocious. I mean, if you're talking about 200 yards of total offense, got Willie Taggart fired when Miami beat Florida State, 227. Which I believe is what Florida State had last year against Miami, 2018, is what we had in the bowl game. It's just not good enough. Miami ran 0 plays across Louisiana Tech's 37-yard line. Like, Miami wasn't even close to scoring. You know what I mean? Like, think about it. The 13 yards from the 50 was as far as Miami matriculated the ball in the game. Like, it is, the further that you go into, and I had to look it up. I looked at the drive chart. I was like, no, when I did the good, the bad, the ugly, I was like, okay, like, I didn't think that maybe, a red zone. Nope, 0 for 0 in the red zone because we didn't get across the 37. Like, the run game was atrocious, 74 yards on 28 carries for 2.6. 7 penalties, 5 for 14 on third down, which actually was better than normal for a percentage, but still not great. Was 5 for 14. Yeah, that's 35.6% when Miami was converting like 22% or 23% for the year. 3.7 yards per play, 62 plays of offense only. We didn't even, we lost the time of possession, lost a fumble. You can go on and go on and go on and go on. And every statistic from this game was just terrible. And again, Louisiana Tech only had 337 yards of offense. Like, they were not lighting the world on fire. It's not like they walked up and down the field. They took advantage of some turnovers. They had a couple short fields. They punched it in the end zone twice. But like, it wasn't that they dragged us up and down the field like LSU did to Oklahoma. You know what I mean? Like, it was a 7-0 ball game, and Miami is driving for a potential tying score. But then again, driving is relative because we barely got across their 40-yard line. Through interception, they got it down inside of our 30, and then they punched it in at the end of that drive. And, the defense did what the defense could do, but there's only so much you can do without the defense actually scoring themselves. But yeah, the bowl game was atrocious. And like I said, the offense was fireable. It was a fireable offense in so many ways throughout this season. It was fireable again. The coaching the way that the team played, that was fireable. And so Dan Enos got fired or let go or mutually separated. But I struggle to see how that will be the only staff change. I don't necessarily know where you would go or what you would do I would think maybe some guys on offense. It's been reported or rumored that maybe a guy or two on defense, those coaching spots will be upgraded as well. But there's nothing about this program. There's nothing about any of these performances this year that should give anybody, just a carte blanche, freedom, security in their jobs. And that even goes to Manny Diaz. Because, I mean, look, another season like this, and this time next year, we're going to be talking about Miami's new coach, and it won't be Manny.
Hurricane Logan, thank you so much for the contribution on the Super Chat. And Taran Blow as well, who wanted Mario Cristobal.
I mean, many people did. And there was a great case to be made. I would have liked it. I'm not going to say that like I wanted him over anybody else or anything like that. I thought it would have been a really good fit. Especially from a recruiting perspective, because I mean, Oregon is beasting out there on the West Coast right now. You think about him with some guys down here. Hey, man, that would continue to raise the talent on the roster, and hopefully, if you coach them appropriately, then that will increase the performance as well. So there's a very good, strong case to be made. I was of the mindset that if we went and got Mario Cristobal, that would have been a good thing. But it was not my be-all, end-all desire like some people's. But hey, I'm not going to fault you for if you were in that camp that was like, no, it needs to be Mario Cristobal or nobody else, because proof's in the pudding for him winning the Pac-12 out there recruiting like a beast, while Miami, struggles.
Notre Dame versus Miami is dominating the live chat. Unfortunately, I'm searching for good questions and comments, but there is a one-on-one fight between Notre Dame and Miami. All right. So Manny Diaz had apparently said something following the game, or maybe in the according to a couple comments that came earlier from another video post, comments made about culture problems in the program, outside influences that he was going to, and then he didn't necessarily elaborate, just that he would address.
Yeah. And that's kind of that two envelopes idea of blaming what was left or perpetrated by the person who had the job before you. But Manny Diaz has been here for 4 years. People keep saying this. I had to respond to somebody, on the State of the U Twitter account earlier. He was saying, he's only been here a year. How are you saying that he always talks a good game or blah, blah, blah? He's been here for 4. Like, did you forget when he was defensive coordinator? Like, there were press availabilities then, and he talked a good game. He came in and said Miami's going to play defense like Miami plays defense, and get back to the roots of doing that, and did. So, Manny Diaz has said these things in this way before. But when you talk about all this culture stuff, you're passing the blame off to those who were here previously. But you were here previously. And I get that you were not necessarily running the show, but you were part of that show. So Manny Diaz talking about culture is not distancing himself from the issue. Because if there's a cultural problem, he was here to help foster that over the course of multiple years, not just one. So him continuing to say that is telling to me. Also, and I meant to bring this up, before we came on the air, Manny Diaz has done a lot of fan service. He's talking a lot about, people saying things, outside of the building, even that comment that you brought up, exterior factors and things like that. Oh, blah, blah, blah. You cannot have it both ways, Manny. You cannot sit here and say, we're insular. We don't care what anybody outside the building says. We don't read anything. We don't listen to anything. We focus on the task of being excellent, in the pursuit of excellence as Miami Hurricanes. But then get on the radio and talk about, every article before the game and this report, and I don't know, which one is it? And look, if you're watching this and listening to this, hey, Manny, what's up? My name's Cam. I appreciate that. And this is proven to be true because every time he gets on the microphone, and it's little things that slip out. This article or people are saying, how do you know what people are tweeting about on Twitter? How do you know what people are saying on Facebook? How do you know what you and I, Mark, and every other podcast or bloggers who write articles and blog posts like myself and any of these other credentialed journalists, how are you referencing that, but also saying that you don't pay attention to anything outside the building? It don't make sense. If you're saying, and literally this morning, he quoted verbatim from something that's on the State of the U website. He quoted from, I mean, I'm like, oh, like a little, he's, from this blog or, or like, this article saying that. How do you know, bro? Because you're there listening and reading and watching. Hey, appreciate all that. But that's fan service. That's getting on to try to win the timeline. That's saying, oh, yeah, well, I saw this, or Manny Navarro wrote that, or Tim Reynolds wrote this, or I was on State of the U, or Kane's Insight, or Orange Bowl Boys, or da-da-da-da-da-da. You can't have it both ways. But saying those things and embedding it, what it does is it tries to pass the blame off then from the failing of the organization to those of us who support the organization, those of us who blog or are, career credentialed journalists, other podcasters, vloggers, all these kind of things. It's passing the result of the games from himself and that staff and those players to us. No. And you know me, I graduated from UM. I bleed orange and green. I want Miami to win every game for the history of forever. But me getting online and writing the good, the bad, the ugly, and saying that the offensive performance in the bowl game was fireable is not cultural to what you're doing in the building. It's reactionary to what I'm seeing. But having you come out and talk about that as though that is a foundational issue for your lack of performance and proper execution is bullshit. And it's these little things that he keeps putting in there. And it is flabbergasting to me that he knows so much about what we say, what we write, what we do. And by we, I mean everybody outside the building. You have a categorical knowledge of all of these things. Bro, come on. Do your job. And look, if you're winning games, who cares? If you're losing games, then all of a sudden you say, oh, well, yeah, I don't know where these articles came from or this report or da-da-da-da-da-da. Why are you worried about it, bro? Because if you want people to say good things, you need to do good things. And you're talking about recruiting, which he was asked about today, saying, well, the first thing you have to do in recruiting, which is recruiting rule number 9, win. Give these kids something that they want to be a part of, which, again, winning is verification, proof positive of your concept. But you're not winning. So now it's my fault because I hop on a microphone a couple times a week. It's my fault because my fingers walk on a keyboard and I blog about it. It's, and I don't mean to call people by name, but it's not any of the other credentialed journalists who write pieces about it. Barry Jackson, Manny Navarro, David Furones, Susan Miller-Degnan, Tim Reynolds, and more. It's their fault now because they're doing these things. Like, come on, man. Come on. Like, you don't got the juice to be saying that kind of stuff. And it's not any of our faults, or say any of the credentialed journalists, the full-time journalists, and I'm not one of them. It's not their fault for reporting anything. It's not my fault or any blogger of my ilk for, opining and giving our opinions and commentary and viewpoint on anything. But to sow those seeds in these interviews, it shows that there's a lack of grounding, foundation, control. I don't know what you want to call it in the program, but those little things tell me that his view is exterior, not interior. And you need to forget about what I'm saying on the microphone, what anybody else is writing, whether it's a journalist reporting stuff or a blogger opining. You need to forget about all that and get about the business of winning games.
Groon D, I love this comment. Mark Rogers only does the Miami thing because of the views.
Yup.
Okay, let me explain something. Yes, you're exactly right. So my intent is to cover college football as best I can. That's 130 teams or about 75 in the Power 5. I would love to cover everyone. I'm one person that I have certain guests on, like Cam and others, to help support the content and give more insightful analysis on their particular program. So there are probably 8 to 10 teams that I post videos on every week. Miami's one of them, Ohio State, Michigan, Clemson, LSU. Yes, there's a trend here, and it's a combination of who's good and who's going to gain views for me. Yes, I am not in the business of going on YouTube and talking about Kansas football and getting 17 views for that video. Alert, yes, that's not what I want to do. So is there something wrong with that? I love college football. I would talk about Miami football every day. Believe me, even though I don't care if they win or lose, I just enjoy college football. I love watching the games. I didn't miss a play of Louisiana Tech and Miami. And you know what? If I didn't post any Miami videos, I would still watch every play of Miami and Louisiana Tech just because I love college football and I love watching the games and reporting on it and analyzing it.
I mean, you love it enough to watch Miami, Louisiana Tech, and you didn't have to. Whew, man, that's love right there. I mean, I did because, I mean, obviously, but it was funny. There's a walk-ons Louisiana Bistro in Fort Lauderdale, like around the corner from my house. So me and like 5 Hurricanes fans, and I was tweeting about it from my personal account there, but like we went over there, sat at the bar, had some drinks and some food and everything while we watched the game all together. So it was interesting because I was in a walk-ons bistro watching the walk-ons Independence Bowl. But, you know, like I'm a blogger and I run a, you know, Miami website. Like, you know, yeah, but hey, it is what it is.
Grun D. I am DVRing Western Michigan and Western Kentucky right now. Now, I don't know that I'm for sure because of the amount of games on today and tomorrow and the next day going to get to that game, but it is my intent to watch as much bowl action as I possibly can. So that's just what I do. All right. So between now and that first Wednesday in February, what would be and I know that I've asked this question in the past, but I don't know that anything's changed in the last several weeks, but in regards to targets, reasonable targets, and those people that you would like to see on the roster.
Yeah. It'll be interesting because obviously, you know, losing the bowl game might impact some of those pursuits. I did a look at the numbers for what Miami is going to try to get to close out this cycle. And as I cue that piece up right now, basically I said you need, where we at? Sorry, it won't get there. So basically we need 2 offensive linemen, 2 defensive tackles, a linebacker, and 2 cornerbacks. I think that maybe a couple of those 7 players we can find on the recruiting trail. I think that the majority of them are probably going to come from the transfer portal, to be perfectly honest, because some of those guys you need to play. Your cornerbacks you need to play. Your offensive linemen you would like them to play. You have, you know, a couple guys who are leaving Stanford. There's a couple guys who've also played prominent roles at smaller schools, not Butler small like Tommy Kennedy, but, you know, like a group of 5 level schools who could maybe come in along with the offensive line to help out. And then obviously you're going to take just the best available players. So, you know, there are a couple of guys in the recruiting class who have not signed yet, you know, from high school prospects. So maybe you try to chase a couple of those guys down and everything. But yeah, you're really looking at there are 18 early signees. The 19th commitment, Willie Moise, is working on his academics, so he may or may not make it, which means, I mean, if he makes it, that's one of your 2 defensive tackles. If he doesn't, then you still need 2 more. So yeah, Miami's going to look all over the place for these guys. It'll be interesting to see, you know, where they pop up. And hey, you know, Lorenzo Lingard, if he's leaving, like, you know, he just hit the portal today. Maybe that opens up another scholarship slot for you for a transfer guy just moving forward. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of work to be done, and it'll be interesting because you know, the offensive class is pretty set already, just because everybody's already signed. The defensive side of the ball, you could use a little bit of further assistance. And I mean, yeah, offense, you obviously need offensive linemen just because you need offensive linemen, period. But yeah, no, I mean, it's going to be high and low everywhere, really looking. And there are some names out there. Demon Clowney is Jadavian Clowney's younger cousin. He's a 4-star defensive end. You got a guy like a Jamari Stewart, who Miami was after early in this cycle, and then you upgrade that slot to go after Romello Height, who then flips on you away to Auburn on signing day. So maybe you circle back on the Jamari Stewart and say, okay, I mean, the original plan was to go after you. Then we saw a better player for that position, but you're still good enough to be here as an edge rusher kind of guy. So maybe you go after him. You know, maybe you try to find, you know, just anybody that you can to fill those slots and just be Miami caliber players. And I mean, the key is really going to be to find guys who can play here, because we do not need reaches, although we do need bodies for the roster. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So anytime somebody contributes to the super chat, I like to acknowledge that both verbally and then post it on the screen. But if the live chat advances to a certain point, I can't get it to the screen. So again, it has to do with the application that allows me to post your comments on the screen. So there was somebody in particular, and I didn't pick up the name, and we only talk Miami football here. So I will only take 10 seconds to address this, but he did contribute to the super chat with a comment about me getting a dose of my own medicine since Ohio State got screwed the other night, something like that. So I'll just address that by saying I did not think that any one of those calls was necessarily a bad call. I commented that all the calls just seemed to go against Ohio State. So there was a collection of like 4 controversial calls. They all went against Ohio State, but I did not believe that any one of those 4 calls was just egregiously, horribly a bad call and a wrong call. I thought that they most 3 to 4 of the 4 were questionable, but they just all seemed to go against. They all did go against Ohio State. So that's all I was complaining about in my post after the game. All right, okay. And they certainly turned the tide of the game. There's no question about that. They directly related to points taken off the board or put on the board. But anyway, so we've got Miami Talk here with Cam Underwood from State of the U. We got a couple more minutes. I don't see anything despite 256 on the line. I think we topped out at 275 or so. Anything else referring to anything relevant that anyone wants to bring up concerning this football team? But do we expect some people posted some comments about who we would expect to leave the program in addition to Lingard? Is there anybody else out there?
I've always maintained that I believe one of the quarterbacks is going to leave. I stand firm in that belief. I don't know whom, I don't know when, but it is hard for me to believe that Tate Martell, N'Kosi Perry, Jeremy Williams, all 3 of them may, continue at the University of Miami. Tyler Van Dyke coming in. Peyton Matoka is a program player, so I mean he's, not really in the conversation, but I don't think that he's going to go because he knows that he's not necessarily at the top of the conversation there. You've already had Lorenzo Lingard and Relis George say that they're leaving. DJ Dallas just left for the NFL draft. Jeff Thomas for the draft also. Brian Hightower to a transfer. Evan Njoku to a transfer. Nobody on the offensive line because what's the name? Actually, I got to add back because he came back in what's his name? Cleveland Reed. Defensive line wise, I don't see it that anybody else would leave. Jonathan Ford already going to the NFL. All the linebackers were seniors. Well, Zach McLeod comes back. DeAndre Wilder. Actually, and that's the thing I forgot to say. Manny Diaz buried the lead in the last response on the Joe Rose show, saying that DeAndre Wilder's career is done with a career-ending injury, a neck injury. So it's like the 4th one in the last 7 years. But just he kind of threw that in there. But I'm like, wait, what? So I mean, that's another guy. So obviously wish him the best as he moves on to a life without football. But that's a guy who's transitioning out. Yeah, and I mean from there maybe a Bubba Baxa because things were not necessarily going well with him as Miami's kicker. But we'll see. So yeah.
All right. Miami Football Talk here each and every week. And so you got to lock into the notifications because we've got a couple floating schedules to deal with that we can't lock it in for any particular time each and every week. So just be happy and satisfied that we can bring you Miami Football Talk each and every week with Cam Underwood from State of the U. So keep those notifications going, and I will let you know as soon as we know when we can get back together. All right, Cam, we appreciate you taking the time. I know you've got a ton going on.
Yeah, man. So it was good. I'm going to run out of here and go do what needs to be done and talk to you guys sometime soon.
All right, everyone. I've got Pigskin P talking Clemson football at 1:30 live. So join us back For that, I am going to record some Alabama-Auburn football here in just a few minutes, but that's going to be recorded. And then back here at 1:30 Eastern time with Pigskin Pete talking Clemson and maybe a little bit Ohio State. I don't know, because it seems as though people want to badger me about the Buckeyes losing to Clemson. All right, so we'll be back in about, let's see, about a half hour. See you then.